Hi everyone, today we're going to go through my undergraduate degree in statistics at UIUC. I will just be going over the classes that I've taken, how to succeed in those classes, things I wish I would have done a bit better in order to get some better grades, things I did do pretty well and got pretty good grades. So I'm just going to be going through over things I could have done better, things I did do, and so some tips and tricks on how to navigate, selecting courses and getting the best grades that you can from your university. So just go, the first thing foremost is before college. We have AP exams, and that's actually very important if you want to get rid of many of the courses that you're taking in college. So I took, you know, as you can see on the transcript itself, these are the classes that I got credit for. And the reason that it's helpful is it saves a lot of time and energy in taking these courses, and potentially it aids you in graduation early and having an early graduation as well. So if you just look at, yeah, I started at Calc 3 senior year of high school, along with like some of my peers. The main thing with Calc 3, this was COVID, senior year of high school during COVID, like 2020, 2021 period. This was probably like one of my most fun math classes, and because it was calculus in 3 dimensions and it was calculus in 3 dimensions. Whatever we learned in Calc AP Calc BC, we now applied it to 3 dimensions. We learned about gradient, we learned about net flow, we learned about Green's theorem, all these. We learned about partial derivatives, all these different things. Calculus, we took it another dimension. It was also very fun because uh, we did these things called triads, where it was a very interactive process, and we were able to actually visualize, the different graphs that we were looking at, and it made just the entire learning process a lot more fun. Then we go into my first semester at UIUC, took a CS 124 Intro to Computer Science course, which was all about just the fundamentals of computer science, object-oriented programming, typical inheritance, polymorphism, classes, what is a class, what is a constructor. Then towards the end, we sort of built upon this restaurant Android application. And that was an incredibly it really brushed up, it so it helped solidify a lot of the fundamentals of computer science and in Java oriented programming. And the one thing I really liked about the class, it and reinforced the idea that you want to practice daily, you want to make coding something that you do daily, and repeated practice of everything on a day-to-day basis is going to dramatically increase your skill set in that area. As you do something over and over again, every single day over an extended period of time, you have no other option but to increase your skill set in that particular area. So that was CS 124. I also took this other CS 196 class which we built like a Super Mario Kart game in Python. It was a very helpful class just in solidifying my Git knowledge, merging different branches, pulling, pushing, committing, solving merge conflicts, things like that. It really helped me solidify my understanding of Git and how Git works, and really helped me get experience in working with a project, and having different branches, and sort of having my own role in the project and seeing how different pieces of the projects kind of come together. It was also a very fun experience creating this game as well and working with others. Math 257, linear algebra with computational applications. This was actually a very difficult class in that the exams were actually pretty difficult for me. I would say like they were I would have to do a lot of hand calculations regarding some matrices. So we would have to like find eigenvectors, eigenvalues like by hand. And for just me, it was a bit time consuming. And so that's what made it tough. This class is actually very important uh, because PCA, linear regression, and all of these like matrices are the basis of a lot of the other algorithms in machine learning and AI that you'll see. Linear algebra is the basis for a lot of ML and AI algorithms if you want to go further into, like, that's like the heart and core of that. Linear algebra, like another hard thing, just was like a lot of the concepts were quite theoretical in nature, and so you really have to do a lot of I have to watch a lot of like three blue one brown videos. Have to like learn really intuitively like what is a basis and all these other what does orthogonality truly mean? The Graham-Schmidt theorem. Like you really have to visualize and you really have to like internalize the concepts and create make them make sense to you because this linear algebra like this is like very different from like what I had experienced in high school as well, so that was the difficult part of the course. It's one thing like I would have done differently here to get like an A, which is just have more practice of the exam environment and just do more practice problems regarding matrices. That's something I would change in order to get a better grade here. Then I also took World Religions. It was an incredibly rewarding class. I wrote an entire essay on the Bhagavad Gita, and it was just an incredibly rewarding class. And just understanding different religions and viewpoints, and just learning more about different faiths, different scriptures. That was just a really fun experience as well. Data science discovery. This was a pretty simple class. It was just on like pandas, Python, like simple stats, significance testing, things like that. Um, Very good on like fundamentals, like if you want to like really solidify your fundamentals. We also talked about like I think Bayes' theorem and like the Simpson paradox, and the instructors do Wade does a good job of just breaking things down and creating visualizations and things like that. Then I took like a mythology course over winter. This was a class that was just overall pretty easy. I think one of the things that this class, the stories actually that you learn about like mythology are actually pretty interesting and really what you can apply a lot of these to your own life as well. So just learning more about these stories was an incredibly rewarding experience, and a lot of the life lessons that you learn from these stories, like you can also see in your life, and you can also like uh, apply as in the future as well. Oh, like the difficulty class wasn't that bad. I mean, it was a couple essays, some essays, and some quizzes as well. Then I took CS 128, Intro to Computer Science 2. Now this, in terms of difficulty, this is like another level compared to 124. Here you're doing, weekly coding assignments, weekly intensive coding assignments where you're having to design an entire algorithm, entire project, um, and how you want to implement certain things. This class really taught me a lot about C++, about pointers, about references, about structs, all these different concepts in C++ and in lower level programming. It's a very important course, I think, if you really want to learn more about lower level programming, C++, memory usage, heaps, stacks, things like that. This also class really helped me helped me critically think about how I want to design an approach to a project as well. We would have these weekly projects slash like assignments, major assignments that we would have to go through, and just going through them, thinking about how I want to design the solution to this really helped me a lot in just my overall like critical thinking and problem solving skills. They also took 357 numerical methods, which was a class all about different ways to find roots, Newton's method of finding roots. We also touched a bit on PCA, eigenvalues, eigenvectors, some linear regression, optimization techniques, finding roots of polynomials, different techniques of doing that, finding solutions to polynomials. Also like floating point arithmetic was also in this class as well. This class is very application heavy as well. So you also see there's a lot of Python labs as well. So you also see sort of similar to Math 257. So you also see like the applications of what you're learning as well. So that's very easy as well. Then I took Math 492, which was an undergrad research course in math. Here I sort of made like a web scraping project and like a clustering project where we were clustering like the uh, faculty in the math department based upon the research papers. So we created like this web scraper that would scrape these research papers, and they would identify, okay, which pair of faculty are close to one another based upon like the number of citations that they have in common, or the number of like references that they have in common. So this was again just like a really cool project that we took on. We also like presented this in this research symposium. So this was a really cool experience as well, just like working with a team to like create a project, and it was like an interesting use case as well. Took writing and research, again, just the typical, pretty simple, like write a bunch of essays. And yeah, stat 400, your basic stats and probability, like Bayes' theorem, um, like law of probability, variance, expected value, things like that. Just pretty old, just in general, pretty standard. Took intro to astronomy, just in like a elective course. CS 173 discrete structures was one of my favorite courses because it taught me a different way of thinking about problems in general. We learned about different logical statements, negation, we learned induction, how to prove certain things, recursion, really diving deep into recursion and induction, proving different statements. It just really gave me a new way of thinking, a new point of view, a new pattern of thought about thinking about problems. And so this was a really enjoyable class as well. Just like the idea of like writing proofs and like how to structure about thinking about solving a specific question, just introduced a new perspective. That was extremely fun. Then I took Intro to Actuarial Research, which was an entire course on doing research on models to do like sort of sentiment analysis on uh, reviews regarding risk models. So a lot of this was like every week we would, come up with a model, or we would find a model that we would research, and we were presented like this is like the use case. This, and a lot of this was like also learning the math behind some of these models. So like we learned about long short-term memory networks. Uh, we learned about like these different LSTMs. That's just the only one I remember right now. But there were a lot of these models that we researched and worked on. The one thing is like this is a like a research grade, so like it is going to be subjective based upon like the professor you have and how he perceives you actually uh, researching and how you present your work. And I took principles of business communication. This was a pretty typical standard, similar to the RET 105 class. Data structures, obviously pretty important. This was all in C++. We learned about typical stacks, heaps, queues, um, lists, linked lists, uh, and then we learned about graph algorithms, Dijkstra's, BFS, DFS, things like that. This is in C++ as well. So a really fundamental class. Like one thing I should have done better is just here, like just overall is just being more proactive. Like especially in this semester, like I didn't really like have like I guess didn't really care that much about my grades, but like I didn't really have grades as a fixed goal, a fixed like clear goal, and really that's what you want to have. 410 was like an incredible class as well. Like Stepanov was a great teacher, and I learned a lot about like the theory behind statistics, maximum likelihood estimation, consistent estimators, and like really asking the question why behind the things that we're doing in statistics. Why do we have maximum likelihood estimation? What does that mean when we derive beta to solve for in linear regression? Like how do we come up with that? Things like that. That was a very gives you a very theoretical foundation. How can we of statistics in general, which is really making an inference about a population based upon a sample. So continuing on here, Took some other classes on the oceans and language and culture of deaf communities. This really taught me more about like how to do something consistently every single week on over a course of like 8 weeks. And overall, just was a pretty simple class, but I actually learned a lot about like deaf communities and just had the like the meta skill of just doing something consistently every single week. Stat 348, 385 was all about R, tidyverse. Created this project in tidyverse, just learning R. This was like if your introduction to R type of class. The videos were actually very well structured, and we learned about a couple R packages, and we did a lot of just data frame manipulation. Stat modeling one was all about linear regression, the assumptions in linear regressions, how to find the beta estimates, how to interpret coefficients, how to deal with outliers in when you're fitting a model, how to deal with multicollinearity, how to adjust for categorical variables, things like that. But mainly this was a class essentially all on linear regression. Unsupervised learning was all in Python. Oh, I should mention stat 425 stat modeling one was also like a lot of it was in R. 430 was all in Python. We would get like a Python notebook and we would implement like k-means, and there would be some questions like implement k-means, hierarchical clustering, different algorithms that we would go through, dbScan, PCA, all these different unsupervised learning algorithms we would go through. And the one thing is like we truly learn more about like the math behind like what it is that we're actually doing, not just okay, here's like this is the code and this is the application part of it. But just week to week, it was a lot of Python notebooks and Jupyter notebooks and just commenting and just applying the algorithms that you learn in Python and like solving like different questions as well. Like we apply like so many algorithms on like image data sets, and the application part of it is actually incredibly useful in this class as well. 441 applied machine learning. Think this was on Coursera, a pretty typical standard class on like logistic regression, linear regression, SVM, gradient boosting, neural nets, just like your typical basic class on that. You would have to go through like these Jupyter notebooks, similar to like 430, except like this is like automatically graded. 426, all statistical modeling too, all about actually generalized linear models. So like now, your link function, what happens when your y distribution is not normal? What if it follows a Bernoulli distribution, or what if your counts have, what if your distribution is a Poisson distribution? What types of models should you use? What are the components of generalized linear models? How can we interpret the coefficients? ANOVA testing, F-test, fitting models in R. This was also like a very incredible class, and just model development, developing different models and how to interpret models, doing a lot of statistical tests as well. Statistical computing was all about R, but it was more about like how to make things faster. It was more about optimization practices, similar to like the numerical methods course I described earlier. But in R, we developed and we like implemented methods on how to find roots, find zeros of a polynomial, how to best identify which statistical test is the most optimal, which one has the most power, which one should. And the entire project was about which statistical tests should company X use moving forward. Basic statistical learning was also a class, just like linear regression, logistic regression, bias variance trade-off, just machine learning basics, particularly in R. And the final project, like you get to choose, was implementing ML models and like cleaning the data set, things like that. Overall, I'd say like the main thing that I think resulted in me getting these A's was that I picked classes that I knew I could do well in. I think that's the main thing in getting straight A's, is you want to pick classes that you can do well in, that you are comfortable in, that other people have also done well in, that you're just confident and you know that you can do well in it. So that's one. And then you also want to do fewer things better. So you want to make sure that you're taking fewer classes. If you do have a manageable workload, and if you do feel like you sort of know the content of the class already, then that's also something that you can do as well. But for me, like the name of the game was to really pick and choose the classes that I thought I was confident in. I thought like I knew pretty well. So like basic statistical learning, I've done linear regression, logistic regression in the past. And it was in Python and it was in R, so it wasn't that bad. So a lot of these, and then the ones that like I struggled in was where dopamine detox was not implemented. So here in the last 2 semesters, dopamine detox was implemented, and you can obviously see the results. Some of these A minuses, like you can see, like or I give the reason that dopamine detox was not implemented, which is true. Also, like during the sort of this portion, I wasn't thinking about, okay, let me just take fewer classes. I was just more focused upon like the class stuff. Like you really want to be focused on the grades themselves, and like you want to take a more proactive approach to your classes. Like if the main goal is to get, straight A's, like you really want to be focused on that, and you want to take classes that are going to be aligned with that goal. So taking classes that you know you will do well in. That's the main thing. Again, you really want to, like, the system is like get good grades, and you're able to get good grades by taking classes that you're passionate about, you want to learn more about, that you're already good at. And through dopamine detox, what that will do is it will narrow your attention towards your grades, and that's gonna help you get the grades that you actually want. So yeah, that is a bit of things I learned. Here, you don't want to take too many you also don't want to take too many classes that you really have to learn everything from the ground up. Like if I took here like a web dev class, like I haven't really done that much web dev in the past, so it probably would be a bit harder for me to catch up on things rather than like a machine learning Python based class. So you really want to think about what plays to your strengths, and then take the classes that align with those strengths and the goals that you actually want to have. All right, thank you very much, guys. I'll see you in the next video.